If you're stuck doing all of your own DM conversations and sales calls, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. And most importantly, you're not going to be able to scale past that 20 to 30K a month mark consistently without bringing on a setter. And today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to hire an appointment setter for your coaching business. I'm going to show you what to look for, how to train them, and how to make sure they're only booking qualified calls on your calendar. So most importantly, you're not wasting time with tire kickers and Walmart buyers. By the end of this video, you'll note the exact process for bringing on a setter to free up more of your time and fills your calendar with qualified prospects. All right, so the first thing that you need to know is one of the biggest bottlenecks I see over and over with my clients trying to scale past 30K plus per month is trying to do everything themselves. Look, if you're at that 20 to 30K a month mark, you've probably got some experience in setting. And when you have that experience, one of the things that's going to keep you broke for the rest of your life is if you are sitting in the DMs every day, sending the same copy and paste message over and over and over again. It's just not sustainable to scale. So I've got a very important rule when it comes to business, and that is do what gives you energy. If you're like me, sitting in the DMs all day, sending the same shit over and over and over again, it drains you. The best thing you can do is protect your mental energy and bring on a setter to remove yourself from the day-to-day same copy and paste type shit that you're used to doing. And you can take it from me. I've made millions of dollars by doing exactly what I'm telling you right now, is by removing myself from the day-to-day stuff that I just don't like to do. I put my time and energy and effort into my biggest ROI activities. And for me, sitting there on my Instagram all day long responding to people, it does generate sales, but it's something that can be trained to someone else that can do it and give a 100% attention to it. Because if you're the CEO, you're doing sales calls, you're doing fulfillment, you're doing the setting, you're doing the media buying, you're doing the content, you're putting like 20% of energy into each bucket. Imagine, even if somebody isn't as good as you, they can put 100% energy into that one bucket. The outcomes are going to be better long term. Now, here's the other part. If you're a psychopath and you love just sitting in the DMs and setting people all day long, I know some people that do that. It's pretty fucking odd, I'm not going to lie. Then go at it. Do what you want. As long as it brings you peace and happiness, I don't really care. If you're good at setting, you love setting, stick in the DMs. But chances are, if you're anything like any of my clients that are doing high level numbers, you're probably going to have to hire somebody to do that for you. Hence why you're watching this video right now. Now, one thing I do suggest is everybody does the setting themselves first to prove the process before hiring a setter. If you don't have a proven process and you bring on a setter and say, hey, I don't have a proven script or I don't have a proven foundation, I don't know what I'm doing, I just want you to come on here and set, your results are going to be terrible. You're going to hate business. You're never actually going to grow. I'm a big believer in always doing something first myself and then hiring it out, because that way, if something doesn't go well, I can always step back in and take over. That's what I call full control of a business. Where I see a lot of people mess up is they don't know how to do something, so then they hire somebody to do it and figure it out for them, which ends up just being a complete clusterfuck of nobody knowing how to do it. So I'm a big believer in, if you don't know how to do something in your business, you learn how to do that thing, and then if it makes sense, you can outsource it. So what does a setter actually do? It's pretty simple. They qualify leads in the DMs and they separate the qualified from unqualified, and then they book calls with only the best prospects. So really, they're just replying to inbound leads. I personally don't do any of that outbound bullshit. I think it's invasive and it ruins your brand. So anyone that's teaching you that type of stuff, just run the fuck away. That type of stuff worked in 2019, but you got to take a look in the mirror and see what reality you're living in now. Is like, if you're just going to spam people all day and try to message cold outreach, it just doesn't work. And then they follow up with high quality leads. They manage pipeline, they manage KPIs, and they make sure that calls just show up. So then the question comes, when do you actually hire a setter? Well, there's a couple things with this. The most important part is you need to make sure you actually have the lead flow. So when you're consistently getting DMs from ads and you're spending hours every day qualifying these leads yourself, that's when you essentially want to take a look and say, hey, maybe it's a good time for me to bring on a setter. And if you really don't know, well, the easy thing is when everything just gets consistent and you run out of time. Hey, by the way, if you are a coach stuck between 5 and 30K per month and you want help implementing a full client acquisition system with a setter trained included, click the first link in the description to learn more. All right, so when hiring a setter, there's a couple things you want to look at. The first thing is you want to make sure that this is somebody that you can actually train. And I'll tell you how I hired my first setter that actually turned out to be an all-star star that ended up having to part ways, that is now doing over 100K a month inside his business just from the stuff that I taught him inside my business. This guy, well, friend slash client at this point, his name's Alexa. When I first started the company that I'm currently doing now, keep in mind I had a couple other companies previously that I shut down. I made some social media posts and said, hey, I'm looking to hire someone inside my business. I'm going to call this like the mini me type of role inside my company, where you're going to work with me every single day. You're going to meet with me every single day, and I'm going to teach you every single thing I know about business so that you can make a lot of money for yourself and also for the company. And when I interviewed these people, I was just very direct and upfront of what I'm looking for, what the expectations are, and what's going to make it a good fit. So I got an interview with maybe like 12 different people at the time, and one guy stuck out to me. His name was Alexa, and he was actually from Serbia, but he was over in the United States playing college ball. Things just weren't going his way with basketball, so he wanted to figure out a way online. You know, he was doing a couple things at the time. He was kind of running an agency, kind of, if I'm being honest with you, pretty half-assed, because I mean, don't blame him. Like, he was playing college basketball, and I told him, I was like, look, if you're going to do this, I need you to go all in. College basketball is probably not going to be a thing for you if you're working with me. So you need to understand, if you're going to work with me, I expect you to go all in. I'm not going to have the excuse of practice, all this bullshit. Like, I need you dialed in 100% Monday through Friday. Can you make that commitment? And he's like, well, yeah, of course. Like, I think basketball is not going to work out. You know, me and the coach are having issues, yada, yada, yada. I was like, all right, cool. I said, let me get back to you. I'll make sure that this is a good fit. Thought about it, went through a couple more interviews, and I hired him. Fast forward from the day that I hired him, he's not only made my company millions of dollars, but he got so good at what he does that he became very efficient with his time and started something in Serbia where he was teaching people how to do SMA. And I had a conversation with him. I was like, look, man, you become a really good friend of mine, and I genuinely want you to succeed. I cannot have you in this company anymore because I know you're destined for more. And it was a very hard conversation to have with him. It was like breaking up with someone that you loved. I knew there was a lot more for him. And that was probably the best conversation I think he could have at the time, because I was genuinely looking out for his career and his future. Basically, fast forward from there, he scaled his business up to around 20-ish a month, and then came back and hired me and my company to really help him scale it up. And he's doing over 100K a month in Serbia from the stuff that we taught him originally, what we're working with him on right now. And if you don't know, 100K a month in Serbia, you're big ballin'. So big shout out to you, Alexa, if you are watching this, or anybody knows Alexa, because that is a huge milestone and accomplishment. Now, what can you take away from this? I want to share with you the hiring criteria of what traits actually matter in most setters. Work ethic is probably the most important of them all. You got to make sure they're obviously intelligent, but work ethic is probably the most important part, because if they can work hard, I know I can train them on how to do this. So whenever I hire someone, I'm very upfront, kind of what I told you with Alexa. I was like, hey, this isn't going to be a fun position. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to be my right-hand man or woman, whatever it is, but you're probably not going to love this, but you're going to learn a lot, and it's really going to help you out in your entrepreneur journey, because like, you can't expect a setter to be with you probably for full time. Like, let's just be honest, unless they're in a different country and they're making enough money to support their lifestyle. But what I found is there's really two buckets. You've got the US setters, and you got other country setters, like, you know, if you go into like Serbia, Mexico, or wherever it might be, is if you're going the US side of stuff, you have to bring on a setter to transform them into a closer position, because the US market economy is way different than, let's just use Serbia, for example. Whereas in Serbia, if you're paying a setter $3,000 to $5,000 a month, they're balling over in Serbia. So depending on where your countries are, you really have to look into that. Obviously, there's time zone differences, there's a language barrier, there's all kinds of different things. So there's pros and cons to everything. But the big thing I ask myself whenever I hire really anyone in any position is, could I spend 4 hours in a room with this person? Because if you can't, you probably shouldn't hire them. You're going to be spending more than 4 hours training them. So if you can't spend 4 hours in a room with them, I'm a big believer in where my energy goes. And I don't want to be working with somebody that drains my energy that I don't like being around. I made that mistake in the past, and this is a golden rule in my company for any position we hire moving forward, is like, if I'm going to be spending time with this person, can I, on this call, assess whether I can spend 4 hours in a room with them? If yes, move on. If no, immediately cut. Some other key traits that you want to be on the lookout for is, are they a good communicator? Do they understand your ICP, meaning your ideal avatar? Are they willing to learn? I'm mostly looking for someone that's not going to take the shortcut, right? I'm also looking for someone that has speed when texting, and like I mentioned earlier, a really big over communicator. I need somebody that over communicates. I need them to be a go-getter, and I need them to be super hungry. So like when I hired Alexa, the story I was telling you about earlier, I could tell this guy was hungry. He was following up with me consistently about the job. And that's another little hack for you is like, don't hire anyone right on the spot. See who actually follows up with you. See who practices what they preach. And then the answer becomes a lot more clear. So now probably one of the most important parts is what not to do. Number one, don't bend your rules. Number two, don't hire someone just because you need help fast. Number three, don't let them take control. You got to remember, you build the process. You manage the team calls. You should be meeting with them every Monday through Friday, every single day, first thing in the morning. You do not take advice from them and then go implement it blindly. Now, if they do have advice and it makes sense, you test it out first, but you don't let them build the structure. You build the structure. You build one predictable system and you are the only one to change it. One thing I hear all the time is my setter said this or thought this, so I just did it blindly and I didn't test it and I didn't track any KPIs and I didn't split test it. I just listened to him because he's been doing a good job. That doesn't work. You test it out yourself first. Look, I'm a big believer in things changing and improving, but you have to test it first. If you just blindly let someone else test it, or unless you have an easy split test that you can track, you do not go change shit. Once something's working, the dumbest thing you can do is just go change it because, oh, my setter had an idea that I thought might be a little bit better than my original idea, which my original idea made all this money, improve the process. No, if something's working, keep it. All right, so once you hire them, you need to walk them through a training process. They need to learn your business inside and out. So what I like to do is I go through all the curriculum. I have them watch 10 sales calls, 5 calls I've closed, 5 calls that didn't close, because I want to train them on sales. If you can train them on closing a deal, you train them on setting is going to be cake. And then I also have them study 25 successful sets that I've done and then analyze 25 failed sets. And then one of my favorite things to do, which I think a lot of people just overlook when it comes to training setters, is role playing with them. Role playing has been the secret sauce for getting setters up to speed fast. And what I mean by role playing is you get on a Zoom call with them, you turn off cameras, and then you just set in the Zoom chat, you analyze, go through, critique their mistakes, and then give them advice. What I found with this is when you do this successfully and as they learn more, you're gonna start hearing all the objections that they're getting that they don't know subconsciously. And when you do that, then you can train them on what to do and what not to do. So then they shouldn't ever have that same objection ever again. Then once you feel confident with them, give them 25% of your leads to start with. Then monitor, continue to train, rinse and repeat until they get 100% dialed and you feel 100% confident with them taking over your leads. And then you start giving them more responsibility, 25%, 50%, 75%, and eventually they own 100% of your leads. Where I see a lot of coaches messing up is they bring on a setter and be like, hey, get in the DMs, you have a conversation with everybody, you take over, I'm just not even gonna train you, I'll meet with you once a week, you just give me a report. It's just they're not a leader. If you want a setter to perform, you have to be a leader. If your team is not performing, you're not a good enough leader. I hate to break it to you. Any position you outsource or bring on somebody in your company, you have to become a better leader. I can't stress enough why so many people fail when it comes to setters is because they suck at leading. You need to become a good leader in order to lead your team to the result that you want. If you're somebody that's just gonna show up one day and ask for a report, you might as well not even hire a setter. You might as well just do it yourself. You have to be committed to meeting with them consistently. Now, here's the beautiful part about this is once they get consistent, you don't need to meet with them every day. Once your setters are dialed in, you can tune it back from 5 days a week to 3 days a week. You might even want to try it 2 days a week. It depends on what your goals are and where your business is growing. But there was a point in my company where I was meeting with setters just twice a week and they were performing within KPI phenomenal. But you also have to realize anytime you bring on a new setter, they're going to require more training. So then you might have to go back to those 5 days. If you want the best results, meet with them Monday through Friday. At the time of this video, I meet with my sales team Monday through Friday. Sales team includes closers, it includes setters. So the 3 things your setter must know is your offer, your ideal client profile, your ICP, and the most common objections they will face. If they don't know your offer, you might as well not even have them in the DMs. If they don't know who to work with and who not to, they're just gonna book everybody. And you have to be able to train them on objections that you have. That's why I said earlier in this video, you should be setting first. You should handle the objections. You should write those down. You should document everything because the more documentation and the better training you have, the better results they're gonna get. And then guess what? The better results they get, the happier you are as a business owner. So then the question becomes, how do you train them on identifying qualified versus unqualified? It's really simple. I put all of my clients clients through a worksheet. We call it the ideal avatar worksheet that we give to them. And it's just basically, you're going to write down on one column who your ideal avatar is, and then on the other column, who it's not. You're going to give examples. So you're going to actually have screenshots in there. You're going to have messaging conversations. You're going to have photos of who it is and who it's not. But like, the more detailed you are with this, the better. And if you don't know your ideal avatar, well, you can't bring on people on your team if you're not super specific on who you're going after, which is like why one of the first things when a client works with us is we sit them down to get super specific with their ideal avatar, because organic versus cold traffic is way different. And really, to scale consistently, you need paid traffic, right? Cold traffic is otherwise. So in order for that to work, you have to have a very ideal avatar that you're going after. This is where a lot of people mess up, is they just try speaking to everyone. So my biggest advice here is take the time to actually build this resource out. So a lot of people talk about having specific scripts for your setters. Here's the honest truth. Scripts are for losers. Sales scripts do not work for setting or sales. Why? Because every sale is different. However, sales foundation is what separates setters from failing and succeeding. You need to build the foundation and have the key points of where they're at. Show the successful set. When I break this down with my setters, I have a basic foundational script. It's never a copy and paste type of thing. It's a whole conversation, like broken down. It says foundation 1, foundation 2, foundation 3. And I'm really breaking it down. I want to train them on how to think, not how to copy and paste. Because if it's copy and pasting, I mean, shit, you could use AI or ManyChat or even a VA for $2 an hour. But if you're in a sophisticated market, that type of stuff's not going to work, because your setter is a second introduction into your ecosystem from someone that doesn't know who you are. Obviously, they have your ads. And then if you're going setter route, they have a setter, someone they speak to before they talk to the salesperson, before they become a client and have the CSM that they're working with. So it's very important that you don't underpay this position, that you get the right type of person in. So the key metrics you must track in order to make sure that your setter becomes successful and that you can lead them the right way is booking percent, which is what the average coach looks at. Meaning, if you have 100 leads and you book 10 of them, that would be a 10% booking rate. On average, 10% is ideal. If you're below 10%, you can get better. If you're above, good, it's scalable. Now, the next thing that separates the average coach from the great coach is tracking qualified booking percent. So this basically means if you have 100 leads you've generated, out of those 100 leads, 50 of those are actually quality. That means you have 50 quality leads. And then you book 25 of the 50 quality leads. That means you have a 50% qualified booking percent. This is one of the most important metrics you must track. And on average, for qualified booking percent, we like ours to be 30% plus. So for example, if we have 100 leads that are quality and we've only booked 10 of those, that means we have a 10% booking rate on quality leads. I know for sure if I'm in the DMs and I have 100 qualified people, I'm going to book at least 40% of those people. I've been doing this for a while. I guarantee you I could get closer to 60% of those people. So you have to be able to understand how good you are and then how good a setter is. The setter will never be as good as you in there. You just have to understand that. But we're working for leverage with this, where you're removing yourself. So if you're able to set 50% of qualified leads, I would expect your setter to be able to book 25%. They're only going to be half as good as you are if they're good. All right, so here's an example of what I'm talking about when it comes to like actually tracking the KPIs and making sure you're organized. For us, this is a custom dashboard, custom software that we built that our clients get access to. It's something where basically we come in here and we filter by a specific keyword, and then I can see everything that comes through. The first thing is like you can look at the average lead score quality out of this. So this basically breaks it down from level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Ones are not qualified leads. This helps us in making decisions based off of a couple things. One, the marketing play. Is this something that we want to actually put more money behind and scale? Is it bringing in quality? Or two, what's the numbers behind the setters? This one, it's okay. I mean, the big things I'm looking at on here is like a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, you got 24 unqualified leads. You've had 48 total leads. Half of those are unqualified. Yeah, I don't really care about that. The thing I'm looking for is how much money did I spend on here, which is $1,051. How many high quality leads did I book? 12. So if you look at this, my cost per qualified lead is $88. For me, anything under $100, I can scale that. Call booked is a little over $1,000. So that's a little bit high on the KPI, but I do know I have 12 quality leads that can come in here and I can make sure that I can look to see what's going wrong. So if I'm looking at these KPIs, it's an $88 cost per qualified lead, one book cost. So then I'm going to break this down a little bit more and then kind of look at this. The big problem here, this is a setting issue. It's not an ads issue. This is where a lot of people go wrong, is they'll look at this and they'll be like, well, you know, we had 12 quality leads, but we only booked one call. The ad doesn't work. No, we have an 8% booking rate on these high quality leads. So that tells me I need need to go investigate to see what's actually going wrong. Is it the ad doesn't have enough intent and these people just aren't answering, or are we setting wrong? So what I would do is then I would come in here and I can actually click in here. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to share information for prospects or clients, but this will take me into the messages and I can go see exactly what's going right and what's going wrong. The front end of this looks good, $88 cost per quality leads. Well, let me see what my actual booking rate is. Let me then see why we're not booking higher people. So then I'm looking at this. How can I get this from an 8% to a 20%? Basically double it, right? And then guess what from there? Then my cost per call booked gets into KPI. And then if that gets into KPI, my close rate probably gets into KPI, and then I can scale a campaign. But where a lot of people go wrong is that they have a setting issue, but then they blame marketing. You have to understand the difference behind this. And this is why we have this dashboard. This is a custom software that we built that is strictly right now just for our clients, and we're slowly rolling out more and more. If you want to have a little bit more data and you want to be able to track stuff the right way, these are the type of things that we're constantly improving on and building inside our own company. Now the question becomes, when do you let someone go? How do you make this decision based off of data? Now, the first thing you have to understand is you need to hire cautiously here. Most setters take about 2 months before they really start ramping up and performing well. I see a lot of people just letting setters go too early. Hiring setters really shouldn't be that hard. You just have to put the time in and really train them. I can't stress this enough. Role play, role play, role play, role play. Meet with them daily. If you do that and you're an actual legit business owner that shows up in leads, they're going to perform. This is what separates setters from failing, and the ones that succeed is a lot of the owner, because really I just look for one thing when it comes to letting a setter go. If I tell them to do something once, do they actually go and do it? For example, let's say I have a big jacked bodybuilder that comes in my DMs and my setter sends them a smiley face. Yeah, I would get annoyed with it, but I would correct them. It's like training a puppy. Don't do this again. If they do it again, they're fired. Why? Because I would never send a smiley face to a big bodybuilder. I don't even send smiley faces in the first place. You have to train them like a puppy. And guess what? If you train the puppy not to piss inside and the puppy pisses inside, well, if it's a setter, they're fired. If it's a puppy, oh, you're cute. We'll train you again. We'll make it better. They don't get second chances like that. I'm just looking to see if they can actually take my advice and implement, because if they can, I know they're going to mess up a lot. We're human after all. You have to expect your setters are going to mess up. You have to expect they're not going to be great at first. But the one thing you want to look at is, if I tell them to do something, do they do that? And if I tell them not to make this mistake again, do they make that same mistake again? The reality is that a trained setter is what separates coaches stuck from that 20 to 30K a month mark to really scaling up to 50 and 100K plus per month. They free up your time, they improve your show rate, and they make sure you're only speaking with qualified prospects. Now, if you want help implementing this system, getting your setter trained up into KPI, click the first link in the description to learn more.